Welcome to Keystone Cold Cases, a podcast that aims to reignite cold cases across Pennsylvania. We are here to bring attention to the stories that have faded into the background, honoring the victims and their families along the way. Each episode is a step closer to understanding the truth, because every case deserves more than just a passing glance, and every voice deserves to be heard.
Hey guys, tonight I am joined with Carrie and Shannon. Ladies, how are you doing?
Pretty good. How are you?
Yeah, good.
I'm doing good. I'm happy it's Friday.
Absolutely.
Me too. Long week.
And it's finally cooled down. It actually feels like fall now.
I know, the weather finally matches the calendar. It's about time.
Yes. So we're just going to do some housekeeping stuff right now. If you're unaware, we have a Patreon. If you want to support us, that really helps. If you don't want to do Patreon, if you like, follow, comment, rate us, that would be great. We bribe with stickers because we love them. Usually listeners love them. So please give us a follow, rate us, review, leave us comments. We are very good about answering. And we are going to start putting a disclaimer that we do our best to research every case thoroughly and share our sources on our website at kccpod.com. That being said, we can't take responsibility for any errors or inaccuracies in the original materials we reference. Again, you can find everything linked and sourced for everything that we're covering. So let's get in today's story. In the rush of our daily routines, we rarely stop to consider how quickly life can change. Most of us are simply trying to keep pace with the relentless grind of the clock. So when Joshua Maddux left for a walk one day in May 2008, a normal, everyday habit, no one imagined it would be the last time he was seen. His quiet disappearance left behind no clues, no trail, just questions. And while it might seem rare, vanishings like Josh's happen more often than you'd think. According to NamUs, at any given time, as many as 100,000 people are reported missing in the U.S., with up to 600,000 reported each year. Most are eventually found, many alive, but in Joshua's case, the outcome was far from hopeful. In August 2015, his remains were discovered, reopening wounds and dividing a community with theories, confusion, and even more unanswered questions. Today's Beyond the Keystone case takes us to Colorado, specifically to the mountain town of Woodland Park. With a population that has hovered between 7,000 and 8,000 over the past 15 years, Woodland Park offers the charm of a small town and an active lifestyle thanks to its location near Pike National Forest. The area is known for its scenic beauty and outdoor recreation, including hiking, camping, fishing, hunting, winter sports, and wildlife viewing. While it may appear laid back on the surface, some residents suggest that the town has experienced cultural and social shifts over the past decade. If you dig a little deeper, you'll find cracks in the postcard perfect image. Online forums and Reddit threads point to growing political tensions and controversy surrounding Charis Bible College, a religious institution located in Woodland Park. Though unaccredited, the college has become deeply involved in the local community, and some claim its presence has changed the town's dynamics significantly. Woodland Park lies within Teller County, known for being one of Colorado's most heavily armed counties. Open carry is common, and political and cultural expressions such as Confederate flags are sometimes visible throughout the area. For some, it's a tight-knit, values-driven community. For others, it feels increasingly polarized. Like many small towns across America, Woodland Park is navigating the balance between tradition and change. Now, on to some of Colorado's silliest laws, in my personal opinion. I picked out a couple. In Denver, you could go to jail for lending your vacuum cleaner to your next door neighbor.
Yeah, well, I'm already going to jail. I've done that.
Also in Denver, you are not allowed to drive a black vehicle on Sundays. In Pueblo, it is illegal to allow dandelions to grow inside city limits. In Sterling, cats can't run loose without having been outfitted with a tail light.
So wait, a tail light? Like how might one attach a light to the tail of a cat?
It makes me think of those bum bedazzler things, so like you don't have to look at the cat's butthole. It's like it's a jewel
What?
that you put on the cat's tail, and it hangs
Stop.
right. Yeah.
I've never heard of that. I don't have cats, so wow.
Yeah, same.
Just wow.
People get creative.
Oh boy.
In Louisville, you can have up to 3 turkeys, but you can absolutely have no chickens. So they got something against chickens.
That's sad. What's wrong with the chickens? Like, I don't
I
even
like
know.
chickens.
I know, right? I don't even know what to say about some of these laws. Like, it's just ridiculous. But I would love to know how fervently these laws are enforced. Like, if on a Sunday, if the cops see a black vehicle, do they get pulled over? And
It's a great question.
is it a citation? Is it an arrestable offense? I'm guessing it's probably a misdemeanor, but it's still like, what? But what I really want to see, I want to see a nighttime photo of the cats in Sterling with their taillights. Like, I just want to see cats with their tails up in the air and these, just running around with these lights all over the place. It would be like, like the stars at night, but
Yeah, I totally want to see that.
unless, of
That's
course,
too
it's,
funny.
the lights on their butthole, and then I don't really need to
Ew.
see that.
No thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Chelsea, for letting us know that there's
Such a thing.
bedazzled cat butts.
Yeah.
Oh
I
my
am a
gosh.
cat owner, and we've had a lot of cats, so
Do
Yeah.
you bedazzle their butts, Chelsea?
I have not
Thank
bedazzled
God.
their butts.
I imagine it's not easy to do.
No.
Actually, all it is, it's on like a string, like a stretchy string that you put down their tail, and
Oh,
then it has
gotcha.
like a jewel that hangs and covers their butthole.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah,
I can't.
the more you know.
Exactly. Oh my gosh, it's like one of those after school specials, right? Okay, the more you know, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yep, exactly.
Chelsea's old enough to know. Right, they give you like a little tip. Like, don't talk to strangers. And then they show like a little rainbow, the more you know.
Yeah, the little PSAs.
So, as we mentioned earlier, today we're focusing on the case of Joshua Maddux. But before we dive into the details, let's talk about who Josh was as a person. Born in March of 1990, Josh was just like many teens of his generation, and actually he is my age, which kind of really puts the story into perspective. He grew up in Woodland Park, Colorado, alongside his 2 sisters and his brother. From everything that I read, Josh was described as a free spirit. He had a deep love for music and the outdoors. He was academically gifted and by all accounts was well liked by everyone around him. But in the early summer of 2006, tragedy struck the family. Just a week before his high school graduation, Josh's older brother Zachary died by suicide. And as you could imagine, this loss devastated the family, and Josh in particular struggled deeply in the aftermath. So we are going to fast forward to the afternoon of May 8th, 2008. It was just another normal day in the Maddux household. 18-year-old Joshua Maddux told his sister Kate he was heading out for a walk, something that he did often. Living in the scenic town of Woodland Park and being a nature-loving, free-spirited teen, nothing about it felt unusual. Kate didn't think twice, and she basically continued on with her day. But as the hours passed and night fell, Josh still hadn't returned. His father Mike waited, hoping Josh had simply lost track of time, but when a full day went by with no sign of him, concern turned into quiet panic. Mike began calling Josh's friends, searching for anyone who might have seen or heard from him, but no one had. 5 days after Josh was last seen on May 13th, Mike contacted the police and officially reported his son missing.
So I'm guessing, even though like 2008 cell phones were a thing, I'm assuming that Josh did not have one, or if he did, that he didn't take it with him on his walk.
There was no mention in any of the articles or any of like the Reddits that I read ever mentioning a phone. I know for me, like, we were the same age, and I didn't get a phone until like 2006, 2007, because at that time it was still relatively expensive.
Right.
Yes.
And even if I did have it, like, a lot of times I really couldn't talk until, like, I don't know, after 9 or something, and like limited texting. And
Right.
I could totally be wrong, but I don't know if phones back then did the tracking like they do now. I doubt it.
True.
But I could be wrong.
Yeah, you
Yeah,
might
I
be
don't
right.
I don't think they had all the technology, and kids weren't as attached to their phones back then because they didn't have like all the cool apps and stuff, I feel like.
Yeah.
Right?
And my son was born in 91, and I know he had, I remember getting him a cell phone while he was in high school. But yeah, honestly, I
Okay.
don't. It was probably like, a Nokia or a Motorola, like, that was probably about the time I think the razors, the flip phones. It was not. It wasn't like, a very sophisticated phone.
Yeah, I don't think they were even really texting that much back then, right?
Well, we were, but you had to text on the numbers. So you had to, depending on what the letter was that you were going for, you might have had to hit one
Right.
key like 3 times.
I remember that. That is
Yeah.
absolutely painful. Not worth it.
But totally remember that we didn't have, like, unlimited plans, really. It was like you could
Very
send
true.
so many texts.
Yep.
You had said that maybe kids weren't as, like, obsessed with them, but I remember when I was, like, 16, 17, I had my phone on me all the time, even if I couldn't make phone calls or text during that time. I swear I always had it on me.
Oh.
But everyone's different.
Mm-hmm.
And remember, he's in a small town. There are a lot of outdoor activities. It seems like he was very involved in that. So maybe he just wasn't as attached to it.
Right. You said he was more of like a free spirit, and he was like nature, and yeah, that just wouldn't seem to maybe go with his personality. He's just like, whatever. I don't really need those.
Yeah. So, it's hard to pass blame. Like, his father waited, I think, a long time to contact police. But, it's hard to realize what we would do in those situations, and to pass judgment is, we're all different, and we don't know Josh like he did. But with Josh being 18, he's technically an adult. And having often expressed dreams of setting off on a new adventure, his sudden absence wasn't entirely out of character, at least not at first. Kate had held on to this hope that maybe Josh had finally gone to chase his dreams, and that one day she'd stumble across his name in a book or hear his music playing somewhere far from home.
It would be like really wonderful if one of these cases eventually ended in this manner, where they were just, off living their best life and not meeting a horrible end, or not knowing what happened to them.
Yeah, I agree, Shanna. I do feel it like though really interesting that his family just seems so like laid back about his disappearance. But I guess it just shows how free spirited he was, and they're just like, oh yeah, that's Josh. That's just what he does. Like it just felt really relaxed and like chill. I don't know.
Chelsea, do you know?
So in the article,
I'm sorry, I
Sorry.
was just thinking about it. Had he graduated high school already? Like, being that he would have just turned 18 in March, right? So was he already out of high school, or was he still
I'm
a
not
student?
sure if he had just graduated, because that, like, May cutoff, like,
Mhm.
I feel like it's a little too early, so maybe he just didn't graduate. None of the articles specifically said if he was, like, out of high school or not.
Okay.
I would assume that he's not, because none of the articles mentioned, like, him going to college.
Right.
So I'm thinking that he's still in high school. But to touch on Carrie's topic, I don't think he had ever run away before. I just think he had like been talking to his family about all these like big dreams, and maybe they just figured he just went off to do them. I don't think it's hard, because I will also say there's not a lot of articles about this guy, which it blows my mind. Like, I use newspapers.com for a lot of my research, and his name didn't even populate at all.
Wow.
Wow.
So there's really not a lot of articles, and a lot of the local articles that were done in Colorado on him are archived, are completely like gone. Like, they show up like no content. So after Josh's disappearance, there were searches for like the next couple of weeks, but police did toy with the idea that maybe he just walked away. He is an adult and is capable of doing it. Hell, even his family members thought it was a possibility and even told the authorities that. But weeks turned into months, which turned into years. And there's a quote in a Denver Post article where Mike is quoted as saying, "For years, there's tears and prayers and hope, and hoping there's hope, and wondering and waiting." I assume the family thought Josh would show up at some point with talk of his new adventures or the possibility he had a family. But as the years started to pass with no word, I assume the family thought Josh would show up at some point with talk of his new adventures or the possibility he had a family. But as the years started to pass with no word, everyone started to think that maybe he didn't walk away voluntarily.
Yeah, I agree. There doesn't seem to really be any reason for him to walk away and go no contact with his family.
Yes, it didn't seem like there was turmoil in the family, though I will say in some of the articles, authorities hinted that maybe they thought that he followed the path of his brother, but you can't commit suicide and then hide your body. So, like, where was he?
Right.
So, it's weird. I 100% agree. In August of 2015, the mystery of Joshua Maddux's disappearance took a sudden and heartbreaking turn. His whereabouts were uncovered not through a breakthrough in the case, but entirely by accident. Chuck Murphy, a longtime property owner in Woodland Park, had begun tearing down an old log cabin he'd purchased decades earlier. The structure had fallen into disrepair after years of sitting unused. According to Chuck, the last person to live in the cabin was his brother, but that was back in 2005. Since then, it had been vacant for nearly a decade. Chuck had plans to clear the property for development, and on August 7th, a demolition crew was brought in. While dismantling the chimney, they made a chilling discovery: a human body lodged inside.
Wait, how does a body get inside of a chimney?
So there's a lot of theories on like how he got in, if he climbed down, if he climbed up. I linked, it will also be on our website, but if you click this link, guys, you can kind of see like it's animated clip of like an old Grinch like animation, and it's kind of similar to how authorities think that he got stuck. But I will also give you a little excerpt from the coroner. Basically, Josh's body had been found in a fetal position with his legs above his head and disjointed from his torso. He must have entered the chimney headfirst to get into such a position. This was a somewhat unusual position, and the coroner commented that he thought it would have taken two people to position him in such a fashion. That was from one of his earlier statements. So, obviously, once his body was discovered, authorities were immediately called to the scene. Authorities were called to the scene, and it would take dental records to confirm what no one wanted to believe. After 7 long years, Joshua Maddux had been found.
So, in the chimney of a vacant, deserted house, right? Like, I have so many questions, not the least of which is, how does this happen? Like, that a chimney just I can't wrap my head around that.
Well, in some of the articles that I linked, apparently, like, it's more common than you think for people to die in chimneys, which I never really knew, but apparently it happens.
Oh, wow.
Interesting.
Yeah. I want to say the most devastating part about this case is that this particular cabin stood just 2 blocks, less than a mile, from the Maddux family home.
Well, that's
Gosh.
just absolutely heartbreaking. Like, how many times might they have just passed by not knowing his body was in there? Oh.
Well, we did talk about that there were extensive searches in the beginning, but it did get overlooked. And the reason why authorities think that it was overlooked, like, this cabin was surrounded by, like, dense forests. And if Josh was stuck in that chimney, could his chest been compressed by his knees? Could he not even yell, even if they were close enough to hear? And another thing that people brought up is, like, I've seen in other cases, like, why didn't they ask the citizens or send out, like, a notice to, like, just check your home? It seemed like some of the people that live there aren't, like, full-time residents and, like, maybe vacation there.
That's a good point.
Why not ask them to check their homes or their outbuildings or what have you? Now, what we once had been a hopeful waiting game turned into a tragedy, and it hit far too close to home. Josh's autopsy was conducted by Teller County Coroner Al Bourne. The results were unsettling, not because of what was found, but because of what wasn't. There were no signs of trauma, no broken bones, no indications of foul play, and the toxicology report came back clean. In the absence of clear evidence, Al Bourne admitted that any conclusion about Josh's death would be based on speculation. He suggested it could have been the result of dehydration or hypothermia, whichever claimed him first. Ultimately, the cause of death was ruled accidental by unknown causes. So, Al believed that Josh had climbed into the chimney and gotten stuck. This is due to the positioning they found the body, and we already went over it, but I'll do it again. His feet were pointing up the chimney, and he was almost in a fetal position, but even he seemed unsettled by the lack of answers. In an interview with the Denver Post, he said, "There is, so far, no answers to a number of things. It is very confusing. This is probably one of the more tragic ones that we've had to deal with."
So when you're saying the fetal position, when you say fetal position, I feel like somebody's like curled up in a ball. Like, so chest, legs bent, knees at the chest, almost kind of like balled up. Is that what we're talking about? Like, were the legs bent? Were the legs stretched out? Was his head above his legs? Like he was trying to shimmy up the chimney, maybe? Like maybe he was in the house and shouldn't have been, and he was trying to avoid being caught?
So his head was down as if he got in, like, coming down the chimney. And they say fetal position. I think maybe when they found him, his legs were past his head because he basically, had died, and with gravity, it, like, kind of pushed them further down. That's what I'm assuming. It didn't get too specific into it. But the cops believe that he climbed into the chimney from the top and was going down.
So that sounds to me like almost like if you're diving into a pool, like cannonball, but head first. That's now how I'm picturing it.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, the whole thing makes me claustrophobic anyway, because chimneys are not that wide.
They're not, no.
Yeah, I was thinking that similar to the coroner, that maybe he was just like exploring this abandoned cabin, and then he climbed up top looking for a way to get in, or was possibly looking to go down the chimney, and he was looking down it, you know what I mean? Like, and just kind of just did a header, fell in and then got stuck.
So we're going to go over a lot of things because a lot of things just they do not make sense, and there's more to the story. So once the news broke that Josh was found, questions came flooding in. When Joshua's body was found, he was wearing only a thermal long-sleeve shirt. His other clothes were neatly inside the cabin. Not in the chimney, not scattered. They were folded inside on like the hearth, which led many to ask, if he got stuck trying to go down the chimney, how did his clothes end up outside the fireplace altogether?
Right? Yeah, that's so strange. Like, could somebody have entered the cabin and found his clothes on the floor, and then they just unknowingly folded them, not realizing he was stuck inside a chimney already and was deceased? Or, like, maybe if he was stuck in the chimney and he tried to take off some of his clothes, like, to try to make himself smaller, and then he threw them out of the chimney in hopes of dislodging himself? I don't know.
So I don't think he would have any room in the chimney to get his clothes off. Mm-hmm. And this is an abandoned cabin that's pretty isolated. So I don't think that happened. I'm not sure, though. Mm-hmm. I have no idea.
Oh, yeah.
It could have happened. I mean, there are so many theories around this case. Anything could be plausible.
Sure.
So something that we kind of talked about, the noise factor. If Josh had become trapped, wouldn't he have called out for help? After all, people were actively searching for him that week. Authorities responded by pointing out that the cabin sat about 50 feet back from the road, surrounded by thick trees. They argued it was unlikely anyone would have heard him. And again, I saw in a couple people on Reddit basically saying when in other cases, I guess, where people were either found and were able to be saved, that being in such constricted areas kind of made it hard for them to take in a breath to even yell out.
Right. That's like in that movie, The Money Pit, with Tom Hanks, and I'm really aging myself here, but there's a part where he falls into a hole in the floor, but it's covered up with a rug. So now he's hanging in this hole, tucked in the rug with his arms pinned to his chest. And somebody shows up at the house and he can't even yell to alert them that he's stuck and that he needs help.
Yeah. So it sounds similar.
Right.
Yeah.
The biggest red flag came from the cabin owner himself, Chuck Murphy. He was adamant there was no way Josh could have climbed down that chimney, especially since there was a steel grate that had been installed to keep animals out. The only reason Josh's body was even discovered was because the demolition crew had removed the heavy fireplace insert and was slowly working their way down to demolish it. And if he didn't go down the chimney, how'd he end up there?
So now I'm thinking that maybe he went in to explore the cabin, and being adventurous, he took off some of his extra clothing, folded it neatly, started to ascend into the chimney, kind of like spelunking. Did you ever hear that? and then he got stuck, which freaks me out. If you know spelunking.
I hate watching videos of people do that because I don't know how they contort their bodies into such small spaces.
It's very scary. No, thank you.
But it's just, if he went into the chimney on the inside, why did he go up feet first? That doesn't make sense.
No, not really.
So, the biggest problem with the case is how the coroner labeled the death. It left the investigation with them. Police didn't have a case to work on since it was not active. Even though it wasn't active, the small town of Woodland Park started to buzz with rumors. And there was so much public pushback that authorities were forced to reopen the case. This is only after a couple days. I believe it was only 3 days, and they opened it back up. As time passed, more details came to light, raising even more questions than answers. One of the biggest, most glaring questions centers around the steel grate in the chimney. Chuck was adamant. He installed that grate himself, just a row of bricks from the top. But authorities would push back, claiming that crime scene photos showed no sign of a fireplace insert. When Chuck insisted it had been removed before the body was found, investigators shifted their explanation. Then they suggested that corrosion may have weakened the metal, allowing it to break apart. So, sure, corrosion is a real issue. It compromises both ductility and tensile strength, but was it really enough for someone to kick through it? That's the kind of question that could have been easily answered if authorities had just spoken with the demolition crew. Where was the insert disposed of? Did anyone on site see or handle it? Simple steps like collecting statements or tracking down the debris could have filled in some serious gaps in this case. Now, let's talk about something else, Chuck said. When the body was discovered, a large wooden breakfast bar had been used to block the chimney from the inside. According to him, that same breakfast bar had originally been attached to the kitchen wall. At some point, it had been torn from its place and shoved against the chimney, almost like a barricade.
When you say wooden breakfast bar, is that like a countertop piece? That's what I'm picturing. Like, and if it was in front of the fireplace, like that's super suspicious.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a counter that extends like a little breakfast nook area.
Okay, I think I got you. Like maybe it like could flip up and down.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it could do that, but Chuck said that it was definitely attached. Like it would not have been easy to remove. Oh. And yeah, it was super suspicious that it was in front of the fireplace, but mind you, Chuck isn't living on that property,
right.
And it's completely empty like no one's living there. So with having that barricade, it really seemed like someone was trying to hide the body. Could it be to keep it out of sight? Who knows? Because it seems like the body was up there. But keep in mind, this cabin was on Chuck's property, and he'd check in from time to time. During those visits, he'd poke his head in just to make sure everything was okay. He was always worried that squatters or vagrants might be using the place for shelter. He said that on more than one occasion, the cabin was a mess, and the smell was awful, but he chalked it up to dead animals and the droppings they left behind. So he's thinking, like, I guess mice and rats, those type of, like, wildlife getting in.
Raccoons, maybe squirrels, yeah.
So I'm guessing before demolition, he didn't do like a thorough walkthrough of the house. Like just he was checking it, but he didn't like really come in and go through, I'm guessing, because he probably would have seen the clothes sitting there, right? Mm-hmm. Like these folded clothes that might have, you know, alerted him to something, to at least somebody have been there at some point.
Yeah, he probably felt no need, right? He's like thinking nobody's ever been in here, you know, in the last however many years, so let's just get rid of it.
Well, I do think that he was aware that maybe people would come in, maybe homeless people or people just looking for shelter because it would get cold there. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he ever had anything valuable after his brother moved out. I just think it was like kind of more of a nuisance to him. Mm-hmm. It wasn't something that he cared about, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then talking about the clothing situation, according to police, the theory was that he took off his clothes, went outside, climbed up the cabin, broke through the steel grate, and then willingly went down the chimney. But let's think about that for a second. It was freezing that night. He had no shoes, no socks. We're supposed to believe he scaled a cabin, kicked in a steel grate barefoot. Come on, I mean, is that even remotely possible? And what about, even if you're getting down, what about your willy? Are you afraid that thing's going to get cleaved off or something?
You know, that does not make any sense at all. That is ridiculous.
Yeah, it raised a lot of questions. And if you remember, the autopsy report showed no signs of trauma, but if you're barefoot kicking through a steel wire mesh, wouldn't you expect some kind of injury, cuts, bruises, something?
Right. Yeah. No trauma. I mean, like no head injury, like saying he slipped and fell, broken bones, cracked ribs. You know, I would think at a minimum there would just be some scrapes on his body. But how long he was there, I don't know. Maybe they couldn't tell because his body had already gone through decomp. I don't know.
Well, they did say that when they found the body, it was mummified. So, like, maybe finding minor scrapes and bruises probably wasn't as well. I think they were more looking for, like, I don't know, if he was shot, they could see, like, ricochets off the bones, or stabbed, you could see those types of markings on the bones, those types of things. So, I don't know, it's hard to say. The detective on the case didn't seem swayed by these glaring questions. A revised autopsy report said the cause of death was either accidental death, murder, or undetermined causes. He fully believed Josh willingly went down the chimney, and that was it. When police wouldn't fully investigate the case, it was left to Josh's family, friends, and online sleuths to try to piece together what really happened, and that's when a name started to come up quite frequently, which was Andrew Richard Newman. Josh's friends told investigators that just before he disappeared, Josh had been spending time with Andy. Andy was a local, he grew up in the area, but after high school, things took a dark turn. He went on a crime spree across New Mexico and 5 other states. And at this time, he was like only 21. He was pretty young. By late June 2009, Andy was behaving erratically. At this point, he was in Texas, and for like almost 4 days, he was just kind of like hitchhiking, walking around, knocking on people's doors, I guess looking for help. And one day, he approached a house, and 2 teens let him in, thinking that he needed help, and they were trying to help him, but it was clear something was really, really wrong, so they called their parents to come and help, and the parents drove Andy to the local police station, and once there, they took his fingerprints, and it linked him to a serious crime in New Mexico, and I believe a burglary in Florida. In New Mexico, he basically was just jumping trains and traveling all over the U.S., and he had met some people in New Mexico, and they had told him, like, if he ever needed a place to stay, he could come there. Well, on one of his visits, he stabbed a man to death. During his interrogation, he did confess to killing the man, but he also confessed to killing a woman as well, and the details he matched did line up with another case, but here's a twist. Someone was already being prosecuted for that murder, so that confession was kind of brushed aside. Even though he said he did it, but we do know that people wrongly confess to crimes. I'm not really sure why. But he never was caught for that. But he did face charges for burglary, disorderly intoxication, grand theft, and assaulting officers. It's crystal clear this wasn't just a troubled young man. This was someone with a history of violence. Even with Josh's friends practically shouting from the rooftops about a possible connection, the police just wouldn't listen. One of his friends even posted on Reddit. I mean, it seems like a lot of people that knew Josh constantly posting on Reddit. You can find a lot of info on there. But basically, this person was saying that authorities wouldn't even return their calls. Nothing. Radio silence. It wasn't just speculation either. One of the last people seen with Josh was Andy, with a violent past, a sadistic potential serial killer. Like, that's important. And to make things even more disturbing, that same man had reportedly been overheard saying he put Josh in a hole. So, why weren't these leads taken seriously? Why didn't the police follow up? How does something that chilling get dismissed? With authorities rushing to label Josh's death an accident, the cabin was quickly demolished. I think, it was 100% down within 2 days after the body was discovered, which is pretty fast, I think.
That's way too fast.
And honestly, with how lackluster it seems the police, did this investigation, who knows if they ever properly treated it as a crime scene. And if I had to guess, I would say probably not. According to a different Reddit post from someone close to the case, Josh was eventually cremated, which means any chance of a future autopsy is gone permanently. That door is closed. So, no one's denying this case is strange. It is bizarre. It raises more questions than answers, but it's almost like the people who should be asking those questions, they just don't want to. So, what are we really looking at here? A freak accident in the most unlikely circumstances? Or has someone actually gotten away with murder? So we're going to talk about some theories. Of course, I took to Reddit, and there are a lot of them, and there are some questions I want to touch on. Before you come at me and give me the boo-hoo for using Reddit, it seems a lot of the commenters or the posters on these threads are local to where Josh grew up. Also, that is like the only platform really pushing Josh's story out there. I am all about using newspapers.com and other resources, but I literally really just couldn't find that much on this gentleman. And the article, yeah, if I could talk, the articles that were put out have been archived and aren't always the top 5, 10, 15 articles to actually populate when you search. So, like, we're going to talk about the Reddit ones, and these are just theories. A lot that I saw was burglary. Some speculate that Josh was attempting to burglarize the cabin. There have been other cases of chimney cases with burglaries gone wrong. The problem is, Josh's clothes were in the cabin before he climbed down. If we are going with this theory, he had to have broken into the cabin to take off his clothes first. If he was in the cabin, then he would know it was a dump. Nothing worth taking at all. Then he left naked to climb back down. Why re-enter if you already gained access? Plus, there was zero indication in any of the research that Josh was a rebellious kid. Why would he suddenly want to commit a crime?
Yeah, that's ridiculous. I don't believe that at all.
I don't either. Then you have drugs. Some believe that Josh became friends with Andy because they both did drugs. One Reddit user claimed that Josh mostly smoked pot in high school, but Andy was into harder options. I will say in an article from Pikes Peak Courier, his family claimed he did not do drugs, but we know kids hide these types of things from family. So what if he did partake in pot? With having that door into the drug world, could Josh have wanted to experiment? Yes, he seemed happy to his friends and family, but we do know he was struggling with the death of his older brother. Could he have broken into the cabin to experiment? Chuck, the owner of the cabin, said it was broken into often by vagrants. Is it possible that whatever Josh took, he experienced a bad trip? Drugs like meth can inflict intense paranoia. It could make the users believe they are being followed or people are conspiring against them, which leads users to seek confined, enclosed spaces in an almost act of self-preservation. Also, if you know someone on drugs, you will know they almost have a superhuman strength, so breaking through that fireplace insert could have been easy. But hold up. The coroner said the toxicology came back clear of any drugs. You have to keep in mind that the body was not found for 7 years. Toxicology reports are significantly less reliable because the body's decomposition, post-mortem, redistribution of substances, and degradation of drugs can alter or eliminate evidence.
Yeah, so this seems a little more realistic to me. Like, could Josh have gone with Andy and the two of them broke into the cabin and they did drugs, like, say, maybe psychedelics, like mushrooms or something, and while tripping, Josh took off his clothes and ascended into the chimney? Like, I know you said, like, he was head first, but who knows when you're strung out on drugs? I don't know. Like, I'm thinking maybe he didn't regularly do drugs, so he was just, like, really off his rocker there. And he ascended to the chimney, got stuck. Andy, still tripping himself, forgets about Josh and eventually leaves, or maybe he just didn't even want to help Josh get out. And instead, he put that barricade in front of the fireplace.
I mean, anything's possible. Some people pointed to maybe he was with Andy and maybe he tried something harder and he died of a drug overdose and Andy panicked and didn't know what to do.
And shoved him up the chimney.
Yes.
That would have been really difficult, right?
I don't know. The coroner thought in his first statement that someone would have to have put him up there, but then he redacted that. I'm not sure. I can only imagine. Josh was a big guy. He was tall, and he's very tall. He was 150 pounds, but still, dead weight, 150 pounds of dead weight, that's hard.
Right.
To shove up there.
Yeah, I can imagine. To get him lodged up there, that doesn't really make sense.
Yeah. Then another one that I saw a lot come up with was a sexual encounter. Some Reddit users have thrown the idea that maybe the cabin was used as a tryst. If people knew it was abandoned, could it have been a hookup spot? Maybe something happened. It could account for why Josh was naked. Back then, there were not as plentiful hookup sites, but you did have Plenty of Fish, where I met my partner. MySpace and Badoo, which I've never heard of.
Me neither.
Or I don't know if you guys remember, but Craigslist used to have their personal section. Do you guys remember that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Let me tell you, I would find the most enjoyment looking at those pages. I felt like people would write the most outlandish posts to see what would garner the most attention. Like, ridiculous fetishes were on that site.
Ew. Just gross.
Yes. But everything must come to an end because the personal sections were shut down in 2018 because of devious stuff, as I'm sure we've all heard.
Craigslist killer.
Yep. So, I think a lot of people are latching onto different aspects of this puzzling case in an attempt to make sense of it. With so many unanswered questions, it seems like a natural response. Our minds crave logic, so we try to piece together a narrative that helps us rationalize what happened. Basically, this case is at a standstill. Yes, tips have come in, but there is never any solid evidence to urge authorities to pursue. To them, they feel like all they get is hearsay without times, dates, or specifics. I'll leave you with a quote from the coroner from Pikes Peak Courier. I know it's not a natural death, and I'm confident it's not a suicide. My other options are accidental, homicide, and undetermined cause of death. It is frustrating. We can't pin it down. With that, I leave you with a conundrum of a case to ponder. Have a wonderful night. That's all we have for this episode of the Keystone Cold Cases podcast. Thank you so much for listening, and please consider leaving us a review wherever you get your podcasts. If you want to find out more about the podcast, the host, and the cases we cover, or if you want to suggest a case, please visit us at kccpod.com or send us an email at keystonecoldcases@gmail.com. You can also follow us on Facebook at Keystone Cold Cases and on Instagram and TikTok at KCCPod. Follow us on YouTube at Keystone Cold Cases. Please remember never to reach out to family or friends of the victims, only to law enforcement if you have any tips. This episode was researched and hosted by me, Chelsea. Find all of our sources, social info, and contact information at kccpod.com. Theme music by Darren Makins and production assistance from Shannon Bickle. Join us again next week for another case to sleuth out to.